us. Don't worry about what you're going to eat, because later we have fellowship. We got cake over there. We got some date bread. Okay, new kind of bread. We got some drinks over there. So don't worry about what you're going to eat. Now, we have some very interesting things going on in this passage, but I want to go back at the very beginning first, because in verse 25 it says, therefore. So it's kind of hard to pick up in the middle of a chapter. Therefore means something went before and is important, and therefore this is what Jesus says. So just briefly to think about what came before that, and, it's good to read the whole chapter in context. But in the first part of this chapter 6, Jesus, especially just prior to this, Jesus gave differences between following him or living in the world. What's the difference? How should that look? And he gives some examples that we can think about, some examples to meditate on so that we can make a choice. Those that were listening to him can make a choice to follow Jesus or not follow Jesus, to have a different life than the one they're living now, or to continue with what they have. And he starts off with there being two treasures. You either have a treasure in heaven or treasure on earth. And one treasure is durable, means it lasts for a very long time, does not rust, it is not eaten by moths, and the other one is non-durable. It quickly gets taken away by things like rust or moth, or say if you save a lot of money, it's affected by the economy, the way things go up and down. You can lose it. And he talks about two ways of seeing. Where is your heart? Are you blind to the things because you're focused on the world? Or are you single-minded about the things of the Lord? Where your heart is, that's where your treasure is. So he talks about those ways of seeing, of living. And then he talks about two masters, that either you're going to follow God or be caught up in this world following after material wealth. You can't have both. You can't follow both, no matter how hard we try. So he talks about those things up front, about really he gets to our ambition. He's giving them these examples. So your thought before your action. Make a choice. If you make a choice for God, then live as he's telling us to live. Like in verses 31 through 34. If that's true, if verse 25 is true, if everything leading up to this point, therefore, if all that is true, if God is the way, if your treasure really is durable in heaven, if you're focused on God, then he says, do not worry about life. If all that leading up to 25 is true, then verse 33 is the way we should be living. Verse 33, seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. So he talks about our ambition. And the choice that we make between the world and between God radically affects our attitude in our life, how we live. But it's not always an easy choice. There are things in this world that attract us, and ways that people want us to go, and things that they want us to do. Culturally, sometimes we're expected to do things and just do it without really giving it over to God to do. And some of you that have been here for a while, you've heard me preach on this section of Scripture, mainly because a lot of it, I can tell my story through this Scripture. And some of you know that I was in the military before, many, many years ago. I could have retired by now if I stayed in the military. But I was in the military back in 1984, left the military in 1988, and went back home to the best place on earth. Where'd my wife go? to Alaska, back home, and I'm never going to leave Alaska again. That's where I wanted to stay. And went to school, left the military, and went to college back home in Alaska, and was doing things there, and never wanted to leave again, and trying to get settled. And then in the church that we were serving, the Korean church, someone, a Chandolsa, hadn't been ordained yet, came older, he was older too, came from Princeton and continued to encourage strongly for me to go to seminary. So I kept thinking about that, sometimes yes, sometimes no. I fill out some of the paperwork and send it to the school, and then I stopped because I had a big struggle. What do I'm getting settled here in Alaska again. I like to stay here. All my family is in Alaska. I don't want to go. I don't want to go anywhere. And I don't know if God really wants me to go to seminary anyway. So there was that tug of war, that struggle between doing that. So you had to give it to God. God, is this the way that you want me to go? What do you want me to do? You need to show me, beyond the shadow of my own doubt, that you want me to go to seminary. And so I went ahead and enrolled in a private university in Anchorage, and started in the winter semester beginning in January. And was praying, God, I'm going to do this, but if this isn't what you want me to do, then you need to show me. Because it seems right to do this. It's okay to do this. And as some of you know, that the point where the decision came clear was during that time in March. We have the spring break, where you take 1 week of vacation during the semester. You get to have a week off. And so just before, the week before spring break, the university said, we're a private university, and some of our funding, a lot of our funding for the next year is going away. And we don't know